Hello, this is Claus Jensen presenting an exciting game from round 7 of Tata Steel Chess Grandmaster Group B. White is the very talented 16-year-old Nychnyk, who is already rated 25-68, and black is Vocaturo, who has a similar rating, but he's 7 years older. I followed this game live on the Tata Steel Chess website, and I thought it would be only fair to make a video of it. And I hope you agree after having watched this game. So let's go. Nychnyk is playing the white pieces and he opened d4. Knight f6, c4, c5, d5. And here in this Benoni, an interesting idea for black is the Benko gambit b5 with the idea c takes b5, a6, b takes a6 and bishop takes a6. But that's another story. In the game, Vocaturo played d6. Knight c3, g6, e4, bishop g7, knight f3, castles, bishop e2, and the opening is now something between a Benoni and a king's engine. e6 from Vocaturo, castles, rook e8, knight d2, knight a6, rook e1, knight c7, a4, and then knight back to a6. And it does look a little odd that Vocaturo moves his knight back to a6, but it's actually quite logical. With white's a4, the b4 square is now a good square for the black knight, since it can no longer be chased away by an enemy pawn, because both white's c and a pawns are already committed to the 4th rank. Bishop f1, knight b4, h3, probably designed to prevent the black knight maneuver knight f6 to g4 to e5. b6, a5, b takes a5, knight b3, and bishop a6. And when I followed the game live on the Tata Steel Chess website, I thought black was doing very well here. All his pieces are developed and on reasonable squares, while white still has to find good squares for his bishops. And I expected Nychnyk here to take the pawn on a5. And I expected something like rook takes a5, and then black looks okay after e takes d5, e takes d5, rook takes, queen takes, and then probably bishop c8 followed by bishop d7 or bishop f5. And black is completely okay. Nychnyk had looked much deeper into the position, and he now played the very surprising, at least to me, the very surprising move e5 here. And when you watch a game live and see a move like this, then you know you're in for something special. And let's have a look at this e5 move. Why is it a good move? Well, the first and most important answer is that it undermines black's c5 pawn, because by attacking the d6 pawn, then there's no defense left of the c5 pawn. So this is the first answer. The second and third strength of the move will be commented on later. In the game, Vocaturo played d takes e5. He could have tried e takes d5, leading to a more or less forced line e takes f6, rook takes e1, queen takes e1, and knight c2. It is more or less forced, so it's not that Vocaturo wasn't able to calculate it quickly, but perhaps there was something he didn't like, or perhaps he simply overlooked Nychnyk's next move, because after this d takes e5, then came a very strong move, d6, and this is another point behind e5 move. It restricts the black's position, and this move may have been overlooked by Vocaturo. Vocaturo now plays rook c8, which is a very logical move. He activates the rook and defends the c5 pawn. Bishop g5, rook c6, and knight e4 now. And now we see the third strength of this e5 move from Nychnyk. The e4 square is available for Nychnyk's knight. And black's position is very difficult, if not lost already. The only possible extra defender of the extremely important c5 pawn is the knight on f6. But this knight is not going anywhere because it's pinned to the queen, and soon it will be swapped off by Nychnyk. Only in this position we may understand that Vocaturo should have played knight d7 before he played rook c8, because then he would have had two defenders of c5 and could even use the queen as a third defender. So it turns out that rook c8, played a few moves ago, was a mistake from Vocaturo, although it looked very logical. h6 followed here, and of course Nychnyk exchanges this possible defender of c5, and at this point Nychnyk was already in side mode. He had less than 10 minutes on the clock with 20 moves to the time control, and I was actually a little bit worried at this point. I felt it would be really sad if the youngster would mess up what could be a great game. Here he played knight takes e5, and I thought as I was watching the game that rook takes a5 was more logical, because then there are 3 attackers on c5 rather than only one after knight takes a5. But of course after rook b6, then knight b3, and Nychnyk knows what he's doing. The c5 pawn is falling anyway. Bishop h4 is making space for the f pawn, and Nychnyk now takes the c5 pawn. f5, and with very little time left, Nychnyk still makes no mistakes. Had he moved this knight away from e4, then the d6 pawn would be falling. But Nychnyk saw this and played knight takes a6 instead. F takes e4 and c5, defending both a6 and d6. And white is winning if he has the time. Rook takes a6, bishop takes a6, rook f8, and now the safe option is rook f1. But Nychnyk played rook takes e4, and then came bishop takes f2 check. And at this time Vocaturo plays quickly as well. He doesn't want to allow Nychnyk to utilize his time as well as his own. King h1, and now I didn't understand why Vocaturo didn't pick up the c5 pawn. Bishop takes c5, and although white is still winning, it would have been much more difficult for Nychnyk, I think. But in the game, Vocaturo blocked the passed pawns with knight c6, queen g4, rook f6, and bishop b7, and chasing away this knight allows Nychnyk to advance the c5 pawn to c6, because he doesn't have to worry about defending the d6 pawn, because now queen takes d6 would leave the knight on prise. So instead Vocaturo played queen f8 here. And another option instead of queen f8 could have been to give up the knight for the 2 pawns, and it must have been considered by Vocaturo. Could have played knight takes c6 here, bishop takes c6, queen takes d6, but still white would just have to survive 8 moves before the time control, and he would have a winning position. So in the game followed queen f8 here, and c7. And why care about a bishop on b7 if you can make a queen very soon? Knight takes b7, d7, h5, and queen e2. And here Vocaturo resigned the hopeless position. And I think this was a brilliant effort from the 16-year-old Nychnyk. The e5 move is very beautiful, and it was not easy for Vocaturo to defend against it. Unfortunately, Nychnyk didn't mess up the game despite having very little time on the clock. That would have been really sad. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you on my chess website at clausjensen.com. Bye bye for now.